Hello, everybody. It's Todd with Todd Spot again. We're here with another episode. This week, we're going to be speaking with a young lady named Cherie. She's in recovery, and Cherie, come on in. Gotta give you a hug. Give you a hug.
Hi.
All right. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you
I'm
for
good.
having
I'm good. So, a little introductory about Cherie. Um, I've known Cherie since I got sober. She was in a treatment program with me. Not with, men's and women's separate, not with me, but anyway. But when we got out of our initial treatment, we went to a program called Pay It Forward, which was a sober living program. And it was in that program, which Cherie probably doesn't even remember this, but it was her and about, I don't know, 3 or 4 other people and me. And we got together and went for breakfast. And we went to a local little Mexican restaurant and we were having breakfast. And that meant so much to me because I had never had friends like that. Never had it where everybody was just kind of enjoying each other's company, having a good time. It was really cool for me to experience and learn what being a true friend was. And Cherie, I thank you for that. So tell us a little bit about Cherie.
Oh man. What do you want to know? I am. Well, first and foremost, right? I am a person in long-term recovery.
Okay.
My sobriety date is May 25th, 2018. I'm very grateful for that. Thanks. I am a mother of 4 adult grown children that are, they test my patience, but I'm very blessed to have them in my life. I recently have had a 5-month-old granddaughter who is my entire world. Grandparent love is very different from children love, and so it's really amazing. And I am a counselor with Lifetime Recovery.
Oh.
And I'm going to school to get my bachelor's in social work. And I think that's it.
No, there's so much
There's
more.
A lot more.
There's so much more about Cherie. So, speaking, let's just go back, let's backtrack a little bit. So
Okay.
you said that you're a counselor for Lifetime Recovery.
I am.
Now, I understand that they just added on, is that right?
They did. So historically, Lifetime Recovery has only had residential treatment for men. They do outpatient for men and women, but as far as their inpatient residential facility, it has always been for men. And recently, they have started taking women.
Oh, cool.
And so now they take men and women at the residential facility, and it has been amazing to be able to have just this big shift and be able to encompass and help more people. So I think it's really amazing.
Yeah. So Lifetime Recovery actually partners with Pay It Forward.
Yes.
And they have a thing they call the Hope Ladies.
Yes.
And I've been a part of that since it began because the organization that I work with, I get to go into the jail and interview people.
Yes.
And so we get to interview these ladies to see if they want to participate in that program.
Very true.
And it's really, it's an amazing program.
Yes.
And I've always liked Lifetime. But didn't you used to work for Pay It Forward?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I worked for Pay It Forward, so their old CEO at the time, who now works at Lifetime, Hamilton Martin, they had reached out to me and asked me, I had about 2 years sober, still living in sober living, and they said, hey, you want to come talk to me over here? I want to talk to you about a job. And I was like, okay, cool. And I went over there and talked to him, and he offered me a job, and I started as the assistant to Ben Brooks, who is now the CEO of Pay It Forward. Hi, birthday. And I started working there, and I assisted him for I think about the first year, and then about the second year, I was fully in charge of the women's dorm, which was really amazing just because to go to treatment and then to be able to go to sober living at Pay It Forward, and then to be able to work there, it's a completely different side of the spectrum. And so to be able to do that and manage that dorm was really amazing. And then about year 3, Ben became the CEO, and they said, well, we're going to make you the senior program manager. And so I was in charge of all of the programs that we had there on that campus. And so it was a big step up, and I got to be able to be somebody that was encouraging and supporting and showing the men and the women of this program that we can do this and that you can recover and that it's possible. And then in November of 2023, 2022, I'm lying, is when the HOPE program started. And so that was a new venture. And so to be able to see women come straight from jail into treatment and then move into sober living, just to see them be able to do that was something really amazing. And so yes, I did work with Pay It Forward, and I enjoyed every single second of it, and I miss everybody. That was an amazing, amazing part of my life.
Yeah, the HOPE program, it is pretty amazing. So one of the first class people that were in the very first class of HOPE ladies now works for Pay It Forward.
Yes, she does.
And she's pretty amazing. She'll be coming on soon. I've
Yes.
already talked to her about that. But so this is about recovery.
Yes.
So I would be remiss if I didn't ask you,
Yes.
what was your life like
Oh,
and
man.
what happened? And we know now what it's like, but
Yeah.
let's talk about what happened to make you end up where you were.
Okay. So I struggled with substances for about 15 years of my life. I was kind of a late bloomer. I started using, let's say, heavy drugs when I was about 21. Of course, I think every teen when you're in high school has tried alcohol or tried smoking weed, at parties. But when I was 21 is when I tried the harder stuff. And so I started trying ecstasy and all of these other substances, we'll say. And, at first, when you are trying these substances, I try to tell people essentially, we drink or use to change the way we're feeling, whether it's a good feeling or a bad feeling. And in most part, right, it's because they want to celebrate something, right? I graduated, I want to celebrate. I had a baby, I want to celebrate. And so I was just in that age of my life where I just wanted to party and I wanted to celebrate and I was always happy. And I think that's initially why I started using. And then I remember it was probably about 2006, after my daughter was born, is when I started using meth. And that is when my life completely shifted. And that's when I got to the point where drugs started to become more important than anything else in my life. There were no goals, there were no ambitions. My children, for all the love that I have for my children, drugs surpassed them. And so it became easier for me and I felt more responsible pushing them off on my family. And that just gave me the ability to say, I only have me to take care of, right? I'm only hurting me, I'm only responsible for me. And so that was kind of the pattern that I kept for so long. And once you get to a certain point, and everybody probably knows this, of using drugs a certain way, doesn't work that way anymore, right? And you either got to use more or you got to ingest it a different way or you got to do it a different way. And I had to shift that to be able to get the same feeling that I was trying to get, that feeling that we want to feel, to take away the pain and take away all of the things. And I remember, I can actually remember the first time I did it, and I knew my life was going to go downhill. Like I just knew. And I always tried to fill that hole that I had with either the drug or I tried to fill it with men. And of course it didn't work. It never works. And I became homeless and jobless and carless and childless, and I had nothing but drugs. And I think I kind of used that as the excuse, right? Drugs has never let me down. It's always been there for me. And that's what I'm going to use to continue to push forward, right? Because I have nothing else. And I started getting in trouble with the law over and over again. And finally, I kept seeing this same judge. And he told me, he said, "What am I going to do with you?" And jokingly, I was like, "Wait, just let me go." Just let me go. And I cannot tell you how I conned that judge into it, but he put me on an ankle monitor and he was supposed to send me to my mama's house. Everybody probably knows the story. I did not go to my mom's house. I did not, absolutely not. I went back under the bridge. I did more drugs, knowing I had to report the next day for drug court. And I went back and, they did the typical, you're looking kind of squirrely, we're gonna drug test you. And they drug tested me, and of course I came out dirty. And he said, well, we're gonna send you to treatment. And sure enough, I got sent to treatment. And that changed my life.
Did you think it would?
No. So I had, up until that point, except with the exception of my wonderful children, I never had been successful at anything. I didn't graduate high school. I didn't do any of those things. I didn't have a great job. And so if I didn't succeed at anything, why did I think I was going to succeed at recovery? That wasn't going to happen. And so I went in there very skeptical. This isn't going to work for me. It works for all of y'all. That typical.
Same, yes, exactly. I know that exact thought. I'm like, yeah, this ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. And so, we were in treatment. You had about 60 men, and I had about 50 women in the dorm, and I was like, this is way too many women. I don't get along with women. This isn't gonna work. And they came up and, oh, we're so glad you're here, and they're hugging me, and I'm like, oh, this is so uncomfortable.
What the hell is going on?
Why are you hugging me? And so, and I at that point, I didn't know what else to do, and I think in the back of my mind, and I think in the back of a lot of people's minds, we want to do something different, but we don't know how. I was that person, the book talks about that is completely beyond human aid. There was nothing that was going to get me sober.
I was one of those unfortunate ones too. Every time they read it, I'm like, oh, that's me.
And you're like, dang.
Yeah.
And I knew that, and I wanted my life to be different, but I was just stuck in that cycle of, drugs and codependency and toxicity, and that's what I knew, and I was comfortable in that. And so doing something different was very just not comfortable. It was just uncomfortable, but I didn't know what else to do. And so I did what they told me to do. And I like telling this story just because it helps me remember. But one of the first meetings I did was Big Book Dick's class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's amazing. He was amazing.
Yes.
Totally.
And I remember being in that class, and when you first get sober, like, you can't focus on anything. You're not going to focus on anything. I was side talking and drawing and writing and doing all this stuff and just not paying attention.
Yeah.
And if anybody knows Big Book Dick, you know he doesn't play.
Right.
And so he came and he said, hey, why don't you shut up and listen to what I'm going to tell you? Because what I'm going to tell you could probably save your life.
Exactly.
And I said, oh, can't believe you talk to me like that.
Yeah.
It made me
Yeah.
stop, and it made me listen.
He had his way.
And from that point, I decided to, take the cotton out of my ears and put it in my mouth, and that's what I did. And my life started changing.
Big book story. I too was put back by who the hell does this guy think he is? You're not going to talk to me like that. I can lean back if I want to lean back.
Yeah.
Couldn't find out I couldn't. But
Yeah.
The thing was that as I started through treatment, I remember very vividly walking from the cafeteria over, up toward the main building, and I asked him. I said, "Big Book," I said, "Do you really think I can do this?" And he looked at me and he said, "Sure you can, Todd." And did you know he's passed away by now, by the way, folks. So he has been continuing to be huge, because anytime I run into something that I wonder if I can do it, I hear his voice say, "Sure you can, Todd."
Yeah.
And I probably will carry that with me always.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought him up. And he give you a big book. You got to write your name and your sobriety date. You got to tell him. I will never change that date.
Yes, I still have my original book. I have it.
So he stole it. So check it out. So I'm at work, and I'm working in a place that we serve a lot of people. And I had my big book at my desk, and I would leave it at my little station, I guess you could say. And so I went on weekends one time, and I got back, and I couldn't find my book. And I was furious. I was like, oh my God. I was so offended that somebody took my original Cadillac. Oh man, they did it. And I had all this stuff marked in there. This book was amazing, which all A books are amazing.
Right.
Even NA, whatever. But anyway, so I'm really upset about this, and I'm having some difficulty because I'm going to every library in the dorm, everywhere I can find. I'm trying to find out who took my book. And I think it was my sponsor that told me. He said, that book wasn't yours.
Oh.
And I said, what do you mean? It was mine. No, it really wasn't. That book was intended for somebody else who's going to look at that book and see everything that you marked, and they're going to get inspiration by what you did. And hopefully once they get it, they'll pass it on to somebody else. All you did was pass it on. And I'm like, and it gave me a different perspective to look at it, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I can do that.
Okay.
And so I was able to, digest that. Yeah. So it's interesting because I think that our little class, our little group, so many of us have done so much.
Yeah.
And it's just, because, I know that you as well as we never imagined, I didn't imagine sobriety, much less anything good coming out of it. But like the children, for instance, that we definitely chose our addictions over our children, no doubt about that. And sometimes it wasn't that we consciously did it, it's just one of the byproducts of addiction, right?
Yes.
But I guarantee you today, if I walk out that door and die right now, you can go to my funeral and my kids will tell you about all the good things that have happened in the last 7 years, and they won't even mention the bad.
Yeah.
On the flip side, if I go out that door and get high and die, I was nothing but an addict alcoholic.
Yeah.
All the good will be washed away. And so I think on that a lot of times, and I'm so blessed that my children were able to move forward and be who they are, because that's what it's about. Is our family, not only our biological family, but this recovery family that we have.
Created.
But I think every class has their people, right?
Definitely.
And I just don't think we see it the way we do, because we didn't live their class, we lived our class.
Yes.
So I do thank you for that breakfast that morning, because that was pretty amazing too.
I did not recall that until you said that. So
it was pretty cool.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was. Never experienced something like
What
that.
was it? What Mexican restaurant? Is it a little one off of Fredericksburg?
Yep.
Must be Churches.
Is that what it was?
That's what it
Yeah.
was.
I didn't eat at restaurants like that.
You're like,
But it was great.
it was really
It was fantastic, and I think that was the first time since being sober that I actually went somewhere to eat. And like I said, first time I experienced friendship in a different way.
Very true.
Yeah.
Usually it's what can you do for me? What can I get from you?
Well,
And it wasn't bad.
I hated people. I knew I didn't like people.
Yeah.
Not me.
Yeah.
Luckily somebody, Angie Black actually saw something in me that I didn't see in myself and encouraged me to be a chapel host, which I figured out later.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe. I don't necessarily dislike people, and I learned that I really did not like people. It was like you said, if you got something for me and I can take it from you, I'll be your friend.
Yes.
Till you don't have it anymore.
We will be lifelong friends.
Yeah, until you run out.
Yes.
Lifelong over. Bye. Gotta go find another one.
Those fair-weathered friends. As
Yes.
the book says.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, I'm really amazed at recovery, the gifts of recovery. The things that we do that we just never dreamed we would do.
Yeah.
And it's my mom and dad never saw me sober, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because that's actually a good part of my story, because I tell younger people that, hey, my mom and dad never saw me sober. That's a gift you can give your mom and dad that I couldn't,
Very true.
most I can do is have this living amends,
Very true. Yes.
for them. Mainly my mom, but that's a whole nother story for a whole other day, but.
Whole other podcast.
Whole series of those babies. But and it's amazing that society as a whole, would you agree that it seems like society as a whole is becoming more accepting to people that have recovered from their addiction? A lot of them are still judgmental, but I think that society-wise it's starting to become more accessible or more acceptable.
I do believe that. I do feel that, so I facilitate groups for another agency, and there is still a lot of stigma about people in recovery, and just, it had to take for us to have this opioid crisis, or for us to have this fentanyl crisis, where it was starting to kill young, privileged children, we'll just say that. And then it was starting to become a problem because it's reaching these neighborhoods, and this is bad, and what are we gonna do about this? And then it started, now people are starting to understand, like, we have a problem, right? We have an issue and we have to do something about this. And so now we're starting to see a shift in, policy changes, in the way people perceive people. People are starting to understand that this is a disease, right? This doesn't go away. If I was to, plain and simple, if I was to put a needle in my arm, Cherie's not gonna be on a podcast. Cherie's not gonna show up for work. Cherie's not gonna be there for her children. And so people are starting to understand that we have a really, really big problem, and we're starting to figure out what can we do about this. And so I'm a really big proponent on using exercise and meditation and all of the things that are healthy for us to combat homelessness and substance abuse and mental health, and trying to find ways to just understand and help people that, like, this is something that is affecting us on every level, on every tier, and what are we gonna do about it? When are we gonna start listening? When are we gonna start paying attention? And I want to be that person, and I'm sure you do, right? Like, to scream it to people like, hey, what are we gonna do to make some changes around here?
I like to say, scream it to the rafters. I am that guy.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid that, and it's, I've spoken at several different kind of groups and different dinners or whatever. They've asked me to speak, and I think some of them don't expect what I say, but it's true.
Yeah.
And the reality for me was that I found that I spent my life self-medicating, because I started drinking non-drugs at 12 because of what happened, right?
Yeah.
And and so I find that sobriety for me is clarity.
Yeah.
And it's really it's always, I guess, feeling something other than ourselves, because we have this addiction, whatever this is in our face, right? And it destroys us. And we know it's destroying us, but if I get high or I get drunk, it moves. Mm-hmm. It's here. It's still, hey, it's gonna destroy me, right? But it's there. It's not here, and I can talk to Cherie. I can deal with it. I can walk through life and everything, right? Yeah. And when I wasn't getting high or getting drunk, it tended to come back. And that was, come to find out, that's a description that I came up with because I interview people in the jail. I do a lot of people that are justice involved.
Yes.
And a young lady asked me one day to describe my PTSD to her. And I'm like, oh God, because God's everything, man. It's, He is everything in my life. I have to be in His will and not mine. And if I stay in God's will, things work out well, right? That's the description that God gave me to describe to her. And I looked and I was talking to her, and we were in the jail, and she's sitting there. When I described that to her, she went, "That's exactly right." And I said, "Oh." So I was on to something there. And this happened 3 or 4 years ago. And so now, when I interview people in jail, or even people that I talk to, if I describe that, I see it in their face. Yeah. They know exactly what I'm talking about. So then that tells me that, okay, now, not only do they need to recover from addiction and things like that, but there's some mental health stuff involved. And it must be pretty deep for them to react to what I just said, because essentially I'm not a doctor, so I really can't diagnose people, right. But I can dang sure tell you what PTSD looked like to me. And if you have that look on your face, it's what it looks like to you. And so I tell people, hey, I'm not a doctor, I can't diagnose, but this is what I see and I think. And that will allow them the opportunity to let themselves, because especially men, I was asked that question, do I have any mental health issues? I'm like, no, I'm a grown ass man, And that was Kagan Black that did that, and he kind of chuckled. He said, I beg to differ. I'm put back. I'm like, well, and he said, well, your daughter told me you tried to commit suicide a while back, and you don't think that might be just a little mental? And I kind of looked at him and I said, no, I knew exactly what I was doing. I'm a grown ass man, right? And he said, well, I beg to differ, because if you knew exactly what you were doing, you wouldn't be here. Touche, good point.
Yeah, there you
Something to
go.
look at, maybe a little bit, maybe there's a little bit of something going on
Dang
there.
it, he's right.
So when I got into treatment and got evaluated, I had 7 different diagnoses. Now, depression, anxiety, I think
Right.
those things kind of go along with addiction, right?
Yeah.
And so, matter of fact, I don't think addicts or alcoholics actually consider that to be a diagnosis. That's just, that's what.
Got it.
We
That's
just
what
got
it
it,
is.
it's not a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Well, I had 7 of them, and that led into several doctors. Finally, the 3rd doctor showed me a graph where all my diagnoses were on this list, and he flipped it, and it was PTSD. And he said, "What's that line say?" And I read it, I was like, "Oh, man." It said that if I had 4 of those, I had complex PTSD. I'm like, "Oh, okay." But what that did was, the knowledge of it all helped me to accept help. And it took me 3.5 years of a lot of hard work for those 7 monitors, turn to 5, turn to 4, until poof, I had clarity, right?
Yeah.
And so I was on probation for a long time. Most of us were.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so right before I got off probation, one of my children asked me, "Dad, you gonna smoke weed when you get off probation?" Because I smoked weed their whole lives, right? And I'm like, "No, I don't think so, son." He said, "Well, don't you just want to chill?" And I'm like, "No, I don't think so. I'll be all right." And I explained to him that if I did that, I'd probably crawl in the closet, and this stuff would start again.
Right.
And I am not going to give up this clarity. This is the high that I've always wanted. Why would I give that away? Anyway, I got to quit because I get to talking on. This is
Okay, I
about
like
you.
it.
This is about you, not me. So mental health wise, tell us about your experiences with that personally.
So I actually have not diagnosed.
Uh-oh.
But I suffer from anxiety and depression, and I probably have some PTSD from past traumas. I'm actually currently seeing a therapist about that.
Oh, there we go.
The therapist is seeing it.
So the whole thing about I have not been diagnosed is not necessarily true.
No, it's not.
Okay, that's okay.
We're talking about it right now,
Yeah.
actually. And so, but and I think for a lot of people in our shoes, it's kind of easy for us to, right, when things start getting good and we are sober, life starts happening. You got the job, and I'll use me. I have the job, I have school, I have the kids, and I have all of these extracurricular sober activities and things that I do, and so I am always on the go. She doesn't have time to stop and think about all of the other things that she's got going on in my head and things like that. And so I think it was probably about a year ago, and I'm almost 7 years into sobriety, and it was about a year ago when you just stop and you have that moment where you're like, I know that something's wrong. I know that I'm not okay in some aspects, and I need to work on this. And so I had started to go to therapy, and I knew that things had to change and there had to be a shift. And I've been actively working on that, right? Because once you also get sober, things start getting good again, like I said, and we'll tend to get a little bit complacent in certain areas of our sobriety. And so that was me neglecting myself, right? And so I had to start picking up, and I had to start doing something different because I wasn't. When our mind, our body, our spirit, and our emotions are out of whack, I need to start doing something different, because if not, I'm going to start acting out of character, right? And all those character defects will pop up, and I'll be a people pleaser, or I'll be controlling, or I'll be the master manipulator, and I don't want to be any of those things, right? Because I've worked so hard to kind of bring those things down, and so I am actively working on.
Okay, cool. Well, I will say that you're an inspiration to me, and even an inspiration to me.
Well, thanks, I appreciate it.
People surprise me.
Oh, yeah.
Not that you surprise me. I'm just saying, people surprise me in general because, it's like, so you get, like I said, I talk with people from day one, and I see people toward the end, right? And it's funny because here, nobody believes that anything's gonna be different. And you know, they just don't believe it. And I tell people, you know what? You ain't gotta believe it.
Yeah.
Just try and stay, because that's what I was told.
Yeah.
Just stay.
Just stick
Don't
around.
leave, stay. And so I wanted to leave every day. When I first got into treatment, it was like, this place is weird and not for me. And I got some really good advice that it's okay to leave. You can leave if you want to. But when you decide to leave, say I decided to leave right now, it's 10:32. I can't leave until 10:32 tomorrow. And during that 24-hour period, I have to just keep praying for God to do something in my life to help me stay a day or two. And did you know He always did?
Yes.
And I always stayed a few more days, but I don't know how many times I made that decision. Okay, that's it, I'm done. Here we go. Go 24 hours, like I said. And before that 24 hours was up, I'm like, okay, maybe not today, you know. But yeah, it was. I remember that first day. It was all these people being nice. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, what is this?
Sensory overload, I think is what it was for my brain.
Well, in our past, the only time people were nice to us, they were after something.
Yeah.
There was not a moment of goodwill. It was always, they always wanted something from us. Well, come to find out, so did those people. And they wanted from us the same thing that we give to others now. They just wanted us to succeed, because through our success helps them succeed.
Yes.
That's the whole program, right? We can't keep it, if we get this and we keep it to ourselves and we walk around unrecovered and I keep it to myself and I don't share what I've learned and I don't share what I know,
Exactly.
I'm gonna lose it.
Yeah. I was told, you come for yourself, right? Because when we first get sober, we gotta be selfish, right? We've gotta focus on us. We gotta do it for us. And so I was told, you come for yourself, and then once you start feeling better and doing better, you stay for others. You come for yourself and you stay for others. And I think that's what it's about. And I think that's how you find growth, right? Because when you're helping somebody else, it gives me the ability to not think about what I got going on, but I can just sit there and I can listen and I can be attentive and I know the other person. So I think that's
Definitely. So I remember in the beginning, you know, I had these successes, right? And I would hit a plateau, and it's like, but then successes.
Yeah.
Plateau. And now, as I get further into my recovery, it's like successes, plateau, success, plateau. It's like not as extreme. Of course, it wouldn't be, because there's not such an extreme change to make. But thank God I'm self-aware, maybe, to understand that, okay, that's life in general, ups and downs. It always is. That's just life. That's the thing that we never knew how to live, right? That we learned. And so I cherish the plateaus, and I definitely cherish the ups, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's those days there are downs. But you know what? I've learned to experience those too, because without those, we wouldn't know what that rise was. We wouldn't know the plateau, right? And so I learned that there's growth in everything.
Oh, there is.
You know, and if I'm having a bad day, it's like, okay, well, what am I going to learn from this?
Yeah.
You know, although I don't think that at the moment.
Definitely, absolutely not. No. And so something that I've started to learn to practice is, and I tell this to a lot of my clients, if I wake up in the morning and I have a negative attitude, or if I don't feel well, if I don't do something to change it, more than likely end up having a crappy day.
Of course.
But if I wake up, and even if I don't feel well, or even if I feel great, if I'm like, I'm gonna give it my best, more than likely I have a great day. Right? I can learn to shift my perspective, and now I've had more positive than negative, regardless of the circumstances that I'm going through.
Exactly.
I've learned how to shift and live in gratitude, right? And I think that's definitely something that we have to learn, because if we get bogged down by life being life, I call them my princess problems today, right? Because if I'm thinking about 7 years ago to today, I have princess problems. And so if I'm thinking about my princess problems, like I'm worried about my kids didn't do the dishes and they're sitting in the sink, or I'm worried about this paper that's due, or if I'm worried about whatever at work, I'm not sitting in the moment of gratitude. And so I've tried to kind of take a step back and just breathe and be grateful for all of the good things. You know what? My kids live with me and I'm happy. I have a job to go to. I am actually in school and I get to write a paper today instead of I have to. And that's been a really big change for me to be able to sit in the positive and stop trying to worry about all the negative stuff. Doesn't mean it doesn't get to me though. You know, right? We always have the days where we're just like, I don't want to do this today. But by the will of God and the grace of our recovery, we get up and do it anyways.
This is not my friend, right?
No.
And when it tells me I don't want to do this today, I've learned that this thing's lying
Yeah.
to me because I do want to live every moment like I can.
Yes.
But I do get those moments that I'm like, you know, and it's like I have to, sometimes deeper than others.
Yeah.
I'm usually pretty good about, I've gotten to where I'm pretty good about catching myself. And I know this thing constantly, 24/7 is going to keep lying to me.
Yeah.
Telling me things that it wants me to do to get back where I was. So it gets what it wants, right?
Yes.
But so to take it a step further, okay, I'm the same way when I get up in the morning. I found that if I just think positive and stay positive, do my 3rd step prayer, big one, I usually have a pretty good day. Well, I discovered that if I get up and I say, oh, my back hurts all day long, you know? So I got to where when I get up, I'm like, no matter what the ache and pain is, I'm like, I don't say it and I don't think it. I just keep moving forward, and I have a pretty pain-free life now, you know, because I used to really,
I need to work on that.
man, I used to really get all tore up, and it's like I don't do that, and I was surprised because that's how God works in my life, okay?
Yeah.
I am not that guy that God can whisper this little thing in my ear, and I'm like, I got it, I'm good, you know?
Yeah.
I literally, bam, there you go, Todd.
Yeah.
And so that was a literal experience that I was able to identify. Because I noticed that when I got up talking about how bad I felt physically, I felt bad all day.
Yeah.
If I got up and I praise God that I'm awake and I'm gonna do this, and I just go in my positive way, and I don't address the thoughts in my head about how bad I feel, I don't feel that bad, you know. And so to me, that's a knock in the head saying, there you go, Todd. You know, it's like,
there's another one I told you. See, one of those things.
yeah. So I remember one time in treatment, I was on one of my little 24-hour things, you know, and I'm sitting there on those little steps by.
Waiting for the time.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, now, here's the deal. You need to give me one of those old miracles so that I can check it. I need to see something, right? And it was a pigeon and a Tweety bird. Sun's in front of me like there. Birds are here. They fly up really almost in slow motion. So I have big crossing across. You ever seen that?
Yes,
in a bird?
I've seen that.
And I was like, oh my God. But I did hear that whisper, so what about these? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. You know, there you are, right there. And it's funny because when I allow him, he never lets me down.
Oh, yeah.
But when I listen to this thing, it blocks it. That's the thing that it literally, its goal is to block my spirituality, to block God. Because God and spirituality is not, you know, I don't know if people realize just how bad our brains are. You know, I had a guy tell me one time, he said, well, you know, that's your soul, that's your essence, that's your thought, that's your whole memory bank thing, right?
No.
And I'm like, wait a minute. I said, so what you're telling me is that this brain is everything. And I told him, I learned how to meditate, and I like take my essence and being, and I put it in my chest around my heart, and I can look up and see my brain. So I know. And I told him, I said, okay, so tell me what funeral you've been to, where you're watching this funeral, and when this person's soul or being and everything goes up, you see the brain and everything going with it. And they're like, no, I'm sorry, it's just a tool. It's what keeps this going. It's what allows us to make decisions, things like that. And the decisions it wants us to. I don't think everybody's like that.
No.
I think there are some people out there in the world, a few somewhere, that aren't like that with their brain. But for me, I have to know. Nope, not doing that. You know, and it's funny because I never worked a job like I work. And there again, I'm going to go back to Caleb again because he was the one that would tell me, Todd, that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean it's not appropriate? Oh, no. You know, you did that. And he would actually give me a better way to see things, a better way to talk about things. Because I'm an Alabama redneck, born in Georgia, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I had to learn. And so today, it's amazing. And I'm going to ask you this question. Do you find yourself totally put back by when you decide or when you're about to say something that you know is going to hurt somebody? Do you consciously catch that and change that? and only try to be as positive as possible. I mean, is that something that you consciously can do, or?
I have learned how to do that. Previously, old Cherie, I should just say old Cherie. I have been the type of person that would use things like that as words, let's just say, as a defense mechanism, right? Because if you're gonna hurt me with your words, I can hurt you back with my words. I know how to push buttons. And so I could still do that today, and I will be completely honest, I have, right? When somebody pushes our buttons, I think it's something that I have that is ingrained in me, that is something I still have to actively work on, and I've been able to change it in some aspects, but you know, if you want to say something hurtful, it's just like this knee-jerk reaction. I can be like, boom, I got you back, right? And then after I'm like, oh, that was probably not the nice thing to say, right? But I am learning that, you know, I don't want to be like that anymore. You know, my goal is not to hurt somebody else, and if that means that I need to shut my mouth and think about what I say before I say it, that's something that I'm trying to actively work on. And for the most part, I've changed, and if not, right, and I have done something like that, I'm grown up enough to, and I've learned enough to go back and say, hey, clean it up. This is what I did, and I apologize. What can I do to make it better? And that has been something that has been eye-opening.
Yes.
At least to say. Brian can tell you that we've had some going at it, and we've been able to come back and, hey, this is what happened, and I apologize for my part. And I think that's grown up, right? That just, it says a lot because of the way that I used to be. I wasn't gonna tell you sorry, right? Like, you deserved it. And today I'm big enough to say, yeah, that wasn't the nicest thing to say.
I found myself back in the day, the old me. I considered myself a professional at verbally just ripping people apart, right? And I figure I got so good at it that I could rip you apart, and you're still kind of smiling until I walk away, and you're like, oh my God, you know, that guy just what? What did he just say? You know, and I was good at that because I was like, drop the mic. You know, I got you. You don't even know it, but you're gonna know in a few minutes. I got you. And
they're like, oh.
Yeah, but I too sometimes find myself emotions. You know, they come out, and I like you sometimes have to go back and clean things up because I didn't mean to be so hard. But the funny thing is that I've been able to take a lot of that verbal passion that I had, I guess you could call it, and I still have a verbal passion.
Yeah.
But it's about the people I serve. It's about the services I give. It's about people needing things. Don't not get between me and the people I help.
Yeah.
That brings out something in me.
Yeah.
Although it's much more politically correct than it used to be, I guess.
Professional.
Yeah, that's it. More professional. Yeah. But I've done a lot of trainings, a lot of certifications, all kinds of things to learn how to be a better person and how to help others in a better way.
Yes.
You know, because I was the guy that would tell you, you know, Cherie, probably ain't gonna work. There's a train right there. It might help you a lot, you know, because that was just the way I saw the world.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, people didn't help people.
Yeah.
Without there being something.
Right. There's some strings.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and so but I've learned that most people aren't like that.
No.
Most people are very loving, very caring people, you know, and when they're not, it really has nothing to do with me. You know, it's funny, people can come cuss me out, and I don't take it personally anymore because I understand it's not about me.
Yeah.
Something's going on there. Either something's in your life that's out of whack, causing you to lash out, and really, I look at it kind of as a cry for help more than anything else. And so I can handle it.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day I couldn't, but I can handle it today, and it just makes me want to help them all the more.
I was told what other people think of me is none of my business.
Exactly. I really don't want to know, you know. Unless it's good. No, I'm just kidding. But, so Cherie,
Yes.
we're winding down.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
Okay, so now, do you have any words of wisdom you want to share with the world?
Oh, gosh.
Or just words of wisdom? It doesn't have to necessarily be
It
wisdom.
doesn't have to be smart stuff. You know, I want everybody to just know and understand, right? Like, if you are struggling, there's always somewhere to go for help, right? I don't care if that's telling you my number here live on Facebook or whatever we're on. Recovery is possible, and it can absolutely, addiction destroys everything that we think we know about our lives, about the people in our lives. And, you know, recovery is possible. You know, Todd is proof of that. I'm proof of that. So many people that I have in my life are proof of that. And, you know, if you need help, there's always somebody out there that is willing to help you. I was told once, you know, what kind of leader do you want to be? And I think that I want to be the type of leader or the type of person that, you know, helps others grow, right? Because at the end of the day, I want to be the type of person that is completely altruistic, right? It's not about me anymore. What can I do to help somebody else? And so, you know, strive to be just that best version of yourselves. I'm, you know, not trying to be better than anybody else, just trying to be better than you were yesterday, just giving every day 100%. Recovery is not easy, right? It's simple. They tell you it's simple, but it's not easy. So just come in and you give it your best and know that there's always people that have paved the way for us and that can continue to show us the way. And so there's always help out there. And I was told, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I need to find a new room. And so I always encourage people, put yourself around people that are going to encourage you, that are going to support you, that are going to help you be the best you. I think that, you know, when we get into recovery, yes, going to meetings is important. And if you choose to do a 12-step program, having a sponsor is important. You know, whatever pathway to recovery that anybody chooses. But something that I have found that is super important, at least for my recovery, and I'm assuming for you too, is connection, right? Having that connection with other people. We as human beings are absolutely wired for connections. We have that innate need to be around other people. And so I think putting yourself around positive people is going to help you grow and help you find that best version of who you were supposed to be, help you elevate and find your tribe, find your community, because those are going to be the people that are going to hold you up when you're going through whatever we're going through. And I think that's the only reason I have stayed sober, right? Because of the people that I put myself around. And then of course of all the other things, you know, practicing these principles in all of my affairs. And I think that's what I don't know. There could be more.
Oh, I'm sure, but we'll do that next time.
Now stay tuned.
Stay tuned, we'll come back again. Well, thank you for coming.
Yes, okay, yes.
And, all right.
Yes,
Cool. Thank you very
so
much. Okay, everybody, so that's another episode of Todd's Pod. I do want to tell you that Cherie is a very welcoming person, but as far as recovery goes, if you're in the San Antonio area, Lifetime Recovery is a great choice to look into. And if they don't have the services to help you, they can find out where they can help you. And anyway, so there's that. I look forward to seeing y'all next week and have a great day.